welcome to We Are Wavemakers. This is season 2, and this episode is all about content marketing. My name is Rachel Lai,
And I am Nazira.
and we're here today to talk about the topic of how to use data to drive your content strategy. Naz, what are you excited about for today?
Well, I'm really excited because today's topic is really interesting because the topic of data and content is just so exciting for me in the world of marketing, especially when it comes to organic content. And one of the things that I know is that the guest of today has been known to use non paid ads to drive traffic to his website and gather leads that are like exponential. And so for me, our guest for today is amazing. And I love the topic of data and content because a lot of the times in the world of content marketing, especially in Asia, and this is kind of why we wanted to talk to this expert today. I really believe that a lot of people do not understand the power of content creation and how data can really take that to the next level. People seem to just create without the why and without the analytics aspect and knowing how to improve that. So for me, like today's guest should be able to maybe convince this part of the world that it really is important to use data to create better content or even drive your content strategy.
We talked a lot about how content these days is just getting really saturated. And I think one of the things that we're trying to go for is how to create high quality content. And I believe that the only way for us to do this is to really start to look into analytics and sort of like dissect the data in order for us to understand what's working, what's not
Yeah.
working, and how to sort of reach out to specific audience and whether or not whatever we're creating out there actually is working or whether it's actually driving any sorts of leads or conversions. And I think a lot of brands struggle with this because
Yep.
they're investing to create content, but at the same time, they don't really know where they're going. And so I am very excited about today's guest as well because I did a little bit of homework.
And
this
who is
guy-
he? Let's talk about him.
Well, his name is Andy Crestodina. I hope he pronounced his name correctly, but in my eyes, that's how it sounds like. And he runs this agency called Orbit Media. And it's really cool because they also created this conference called Content Jam, somewhere in Chicago, where they basically gather marketers from all around the world or maybe from the States to sort of like come together and discuss things that we talk about, things that we do in our industry. And I think it's really cool that today's guest is just very open about sharing his knowledge, sharing his expertise and skills because on his platform itself, he's got a lot of articles and tips and guides. In fact, he even wrote a book. And so I feel like today's guest is just generous.
Yeah, and without further ado, I welcome him into the show. Welcome, Andy.
Hi, Andy.
I am a digital marketer. I've been doing digital marketing for 18 years. Because I'm the co-founder of a digital agency and web design firm. It's called Orbit Media. We're here in Chicago. And so I'm a guy who's kind of like, I do a lot of writing and teaching and speaking, articles and videos and presentations on the topics of analytics, web design, conversion optimization, search optimization, content strategy. So I'm just one of the people out there in the world who's kind of a practitioner on this big topic of creating attention and demand and traffic and revenue through digital.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks, Andy. So, as you know, today's topic is about how to use data to drive content strategy. And I think we're really interested to know what are some of the key metrics to look at when it comes to creating content?
So competitive analysis is a good place to start. If I'm in a category that I don't know already, I can use competitive analysis to see what's working for which accounts and which websites. There are tools that will show me who's ranking how high for every phrase. Okay, drop in the competitors. That's where the battle's being fought. I can use those metrics and that data to go get active in those topics. What's getting shared on all these other websites? Cool. I can jump into those conversations or set up social listening or start to publish similar things or start to promote, put out, amplify the top news, to make my streams relevant. So competitive analysis is a good place to figure out what the general audience out there in the world seems to be interested in, and then to kind of contribute to those conversations and publish on those topics. So yeah, data for sure. But you guys maybe know this about me. I also love the customer intimacy and riding along on sales meetings and listening in on calls and trying to better understand my specific audience I'll give you an example. If we were starting a university and we were building a program on data science, we might say, okay, uh, what are the top shared articles on data science? Cool. Here's a giant list. Competitive analysis told me data is giving me some empathy. What are the top ranking articles from my competitors? Okay, data shows me that. Who are the top influencers on data science? Cool. Some insights into that. But if I can talk to my specific audience and I listen in on like admissions officers' calls, and I find out that my audience is very specifically interested in these very specific topics, that qualitative data is essential to me because I need to publish on stuff that my actual visitors and potential applicants and students might really want. That is actually the ultimate source of empathy is one-on-one interaction.
That's very interesting that you bring that up because I know that in your book, Content Chemistry, you mentioned something about data driven
Empathy.
empathy. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something that we were really interested to know more about because in Asia, and I think one of the things that Rachel and I had been talking about earlier is that sometimes we realize that it's kind of hard for businesses in Asia to understand that content actually is measurable via data. And I think that's why we really wanted to speak to you today. Could you share a little bit more about what data-driven empathy is about and why does it matter?
Oh, it's 100% measurable. Fundamentally, these marketing websites and the value of the internet to a business is to answer questions of prospects and suspects and strangers and people out there. So what content is doing a good job in that way? Totally measurable. Which of my articles are the most effective at getting my visitors to subscribe? Which of my sales pages is most effective at getting my visitors to onto the conversion funnel? Which of my keywords is most effective at creating brand awareness and top level visits? Which of my topics is creating the most time on page and time on site? Which of my pages are the least compelling and the most likely to be the last page visited? Which of my articles gets shared the most? Which of my articles gets people to click through and go deepest? At what scroll depth on my pages are people giving up and stop reading? I have a search tool on my site. What phrases are people searching for? What information are they asking for? I've got an FAQ page. From which page do people come from to get to the FAQ page?
That's a lot of data.
It's all answerable in seconds. In 3 clicks, I could answer any of those questions. I could answer every question anyone has about the performance of their content. It's ridiculous to think that it's not possible. It's scary to forget how essential it is. How can you don't do anything without measuring it? That would be a little bit crazy.
The thing is, we sometimes have to consult businesses who haven't even set that up on their website. And oftentimes we're asking ourselves, like, okay, how do we help you as a marketer if we don't have the data available to support them? That being said, Rachel, you had a very interesting question you wanted to ask him.
Yeah, I guess we're just trying to understand, like, do you have any experience that you would like to share in terms of brands that you have worked with who you would say are using data to drive their content strategy? And let's say specifically for their website.
We have a client, they're a travel company. They do like
Mhm.
these river cruises or barge cruises through beautiful canals all over Europe. So they have these trip pages, right? Each one is a different trip. They have a way that you can navigate to the trip by region. I want to go to France or Scotland or Italy. Or you can navigate to trips by type of cruise. I want a
Mhm.
cruise that's focused on wine and food, or I want a cruise that's focused on family. So these look like relatively equal options when you build a website. Right after the site goes live, we notice that virtually nobody, everyone chooses the first option, navigate by geography. No one chooses the second option, navigate by cruise category. Okay, good. Now I know. I can get rid of all the visual noise. I can remove all of that useless navigation. I can fix the site to be better optimized. Think of what the digital giants do. It's the same thing, just with more data. Every major e-commerce website, every big company website that you visit, there are people inside that company that know how visitors use that website, and they make the useful things easier and bigger and the useless things smaller or just removed.
So it's basically like any kind of business. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. You could literally use the data that you find out there to be able to create a kick-ass content marketing strategy for your business, right?
Any business, any size, any industry. Imagine this. If we go to a little shop, a
Mhm.
store, and people come in the store and we notice that everyone goes to aisle 2. We would use that data to redesign the store to make the things in aisle 2 easier to get to. Nobody's buying this, everyone's buying this, no one looks at that, everyone looks at this. That's all analytics is. It's a glimpse into a virtual space in the same exact way that we would have that data if our website were a physical space. And the idea of not using it is just insane to me. Do these people drive cars without dashboards? Who would not, how could someone not have, like, why wouldn't you look it up? How do people not know what the top path is through their website? People don't know where people are leaving or what people click on. Like, how do you get better at anything in life without feedback and insights?
We're
Agreed.
huge believers of feedback. The more, the better. So, what sort of tools do you think businesses should arm themselves with to gather data and that would like help them to create a solid content strategy?
That initial feedback process is really just survey monkey or basic, how did that meeting go? Were you happy with our service? Is there anything else we can do for you? Just a callback or a check-in if you're a service company or you have clients. There's some pretty low-tech offline ways to get basic feedback, which are essential, because when you talk to your audience and you find out that actually everyone cared about this, you learn what your real value is to the world, and you can go make your digital strategy better by focusing more on that thing, by using the language that your audience uses. If you know your audience calls something, whatever your offering is, they describe it a certain way, you should describe it that way in digital. Don't call it what you want to call it what people call it. So analytics is helpful, very, very helpful. Hotjar is a good way is a tool you made for me. Yeah, sounds like you know and maybe love Hotjar the same way I do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I'll give you a Hotjar example. If you have an FAQ section on a website that has expandable content areas, like click to expand to see, if you put Hotjar on that page, you can see which of those things people click on, and you can learn specifically which questions are the most frequently asked.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I know. That's definitely one of our favorite features. We find that some of these businesses, when it comes to data or like, let's say, with feedback from their audience, I think there's a lack of awareness on what to do with the feedback. They do collect all this data, but at the end, it takes a certain mindset or like sort of skill
To dissect that
and to know, what next? What should we do with all this
Yeah.
information? And do you have any advice for businesses on how they should tackle the situation?
The basic advice is that analysis is always more valuable than reporting. So don't just go into analytics and look at reports. Go into analytics when you have a question or an idea and find an answer. So we just published some videos. Are videos helping our marketing? Or I'm thinking of changing the navigation. How are people using my navigation now? So if you go to answer a question, you gradually improve your analytic skills and the question answer action. Very easy. If you just go in there to look at reports, this is traffic, this is bounce rate, this is conversion rate. You're not actually as likely to find insights. You're just clicking around. It's like jumping in the ocean and swimming around. You don't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's true. We definitely can relate to that because on our end, we do have to explain and support our clients in dissecting that information because we work with a lot of small businesses. And what we see is that that sort of information is still overlooked, the dissection, aside from just seeing what they see on analytics. There's no why is it like that. It's more just, oh, this is the numbers, and they think that's good, but they don't know like what to do with that information. So yeah, I mean, that's good that you're saying that.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to content, creativity is always important. Do you think when it comes to data that there's a chance that creatives might feel stifled if we had to rely on it too much?
There are no tools that will replace inspiration. Creative people will always be secure in the fact that great ideas, when they come to you in a dream or in the shower or something like this, that's good. Nothing will change that. So artificial intelligence and reporting tools or whatever, never going to take away from pure inspiration. And there's always room for a great idea in life. In fact, analytics is very weak in some ways because it only shows it only shows the past. It gives you clues in what might work, but it doesn't actually tell you what will work. You have to try new things to put new data into analytics. So it would be a bad marketer that only focuses on the data. We need to inject chaos into the system and try weird stuff to see what happens. The best marketers are experimenting and trying stuff and seeing what works. If you get data, it can actually improve the creative process. Example, if I'm writing about what the data science example, a day in the life of a data scientist, or what do data scientists do? And I search for that in Google, and Google says, Google gives me 5 questions people ask. That might trigger more content ideas to help me go deeper into my topic. If you can use the internet to find out what people are looking for, it's just like it's like reading the minds of millions of people, which can give you ideas about what more to do. It can make you a better writer, I think. Data-driven empathy can make you a better writer if you just use it to mine the internet for topic ideas to really go into in a deep way, in a thorough, exhaustive way, and sometimes from interesting angles.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I use tools like Quora to find out useful things that people are trying to find out about marketing or even just topics about travel and really, really interesting things that you see. I mean, even actually, like I use TripAdvisor to find out what people are trying to find out about the world because some of our clients are in the hospitality industry and we realize like when we plan our social strategy or a content strategy, we try to, like you said, empathize with their needs rather than just do it because I want to do it. You know, like so. Yeah, that's cool that you're championing.
I love that. Quora is amazing that way. So Quora is a place where people pose tons of questions, and so there's inspiration drove those questions. But then the number of upvotes on each question is data on which questions are highly vetted as interesting to an audience. So it's a combination of empathy and data, or inspiration and metrics. Quora is a great example. It's a super powerful content platform for a lot of reasons. One of them is you connect with people, which ultimately is the point, to make friends and meet people and collaborate. I'm a huge fan of Quora too. I love that you mentioned that.
Funnily enough, I'm also finding that it works well in Facebook groups as well. We're learning a lot from some Facebook groups discussions and say in Bali, for example, they have this thing like a community about a certain vicinity and they'll share their insights and what they're stressed about in the vicinity. And we can usually use that information to, try to understand how to solve their problems essentially. But that being said, Rachel, you have one last question for Andy, don't you?
Yeah, I guess just sort of, tying it back to what you said. You said some beautiful things about creatives and how inspiration is the way forward. And I guess, how do you think creatives and marketers can work together towards creating content to bring the best possible results for our clients?
The content, if strategy is about a plan to reach a goal, then your content strategy is a plan to use content to reach a goal and a business goal. And you don't even know if you reached that goal unless you have data, right? Like it's the tool through which you measure the effectiveness of your strategy. It's the tool through which you learn how to iterate and choose which tactics are working. So if you have data and you use it, ultimately the data is going to give you 2 things. It's going to tell you what's not working so you can stop doing that. It's going to tell you what is working so you can do much more of that. Without that, you're just feeling around in the dark. With it, if you build a culture around it, you start to improve your strategy much faster than your competitors. Within a year or 2, they're going to wonder how you did it.
Right.
If at all, I think what data helps creatives, I mean, what marketers can do with the dissecting of the data is to give them sort of just like a few paint brushes and say like, okay, here, paint. These are the tools. Do you know what I mean that you need to support with, but go crazy with the colors or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and just using like an art analysis because creatives usually, we always find that there's a little bit of barrier sometimes with creatives when we give them the data and they want to trust their own gut, and that's fine too, but it really isn't if you're trying to help a client, solve their problems for their business. So thanks for that. I think that insight that you gave to us was really, really helpful, and hopefully our listeners will find value in that. Thanks, Andy.
Trust but verify. Trust your gut. Do it, whatever crazy idea you have. But then don't forget to go see if it worked. If it didn't work, Trust your gut on a different topic. Just keep checking to see if it works. It is not an impediment to creativity. There's all kinds of creative ways to play a sport, but the sport has to have a scoreboard, or you're not really serious about the game.
I guess that's where the marketers would come in and just sort of give it that reality check for creatives every now and then, but in a proactive way, not in a critical way. That being said, thanks, Andy. I think we've gained a lot of insights from you today, and I love some of the quotes that I've gathered from you today. Do you have any final word you'd like to share today about content marketing and this whole data-driven empathy?
Just to kind of restate that, so many of us became marketers because we wanted to use both halves of our brain. We wanted to be creative and technical. We wanted to combine art and science. There are marketers who miss a chance to both get great results and do fulfilling work by focusing too much on the artistic side, and others who miss the chance to do great and fulfilling work by obsessing too much over the data. We are in a world where it really benefits the center-brained professional who wants to combine art and science. So everything is an opportunity to experiment, and it may be inspiration that led to the idea for the experiment, but it is only through the scientific method that can confirm or validate or disprove that idea, that hypothesis, as being worthwhile. And by the way, there's lots of things that you'll try that actually you'll determine there was no impact. We like this blue versus that blue. Hey, the data showed it. It doesn't matter. Cool. Pick the blue you like. Use whatever blue you like. It doesn't matter. Preference and opinion are great too. So not everything is validated through science and research, and some things we just do for the love of it. So that's great too.
And that's a wonderful wrap up.
Yeah, love that. That's great insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy. Well, that conversation with Andy was very enlightening. I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I think he said a lot of important things that we already practice as an agency, and particularly about the data-driven empathy. I mean, we thrive a lot about that, about, in between balancing our creative minds. We do believe in backing up our creativity. And so what were some of your insights on today's topic, Nas?
Well, my thoughts about the whole balancing between creative brain and science brain is so important. As you were saying earlier, we really try and thrive in that direction. And it's unfair to creatives to say to them that they can't be creative. But then I will also agree with him that there's some parts of it that need some kind of scoreboard, you know what I mean? And otherwise, what's the purpose? It always goes back to our whole why thing, like, why would you do what you do if it doesn't mean anything? And then of course it's the part where testing, like we and this is the part where we would need to educate our clients too, because we have creative ideas all the time. And we have the means to measure these, but sometimes what we often see is that they're not willing to experiment for whatever reason. And I think in marketing, if they're really serious about marketing to their target audience, it's so important to keep testing. It's not one solution fits all. You know?
And I think it's just a constant struggle for us to educate our clients or businesses in general to be adaptable with their marketing solutions.
100%.
And it's really funny because, this kind of relates a little bit to the whole yoga philosophy that balances between the left brain and the right brain, where he talked a lot about art and science. And I think we live in a times now where it is important to use both elements in everything that we do. And it's about balancing your strategies, at one end, some of us may think that we're doing the right thing just because we read this somewhere or we were told that this would work. But at the end, testing, experimenting, analyzing would come up with a
Listening.
different, exactly.
Yeah.
Or just, being intuitive
Yeah.
to feedback.
Yeah.
He brought up the whole feedback thing.
Yep,
And we're always about feedback. And you'd be surprised how sometimes businesses are not ready to hear the truth from what their audiences are actually saying
Yeah,
about them.
yeah.
And this is the part where we kind of have to hold their hand and say, hey, it's okay. This doesn't mean that you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's actually going to empower you to get better at what you do.
Yeah.
And so
I
I
mean,
felt that that was cool.
I think it's super important that they realize that whatever content that they're creating out there, be it on social or on their website, it's really important that there is something, there's a purpose and there is a tool to
Yeah.
measure the outcome of this purpose that they're trying to create. It's one thing for us to support them in creating the content. It's another thing for them to have all the necessary tools set up, to be able to measure them and understand and answer the questions that their audience wants to know. Like
Definitely.
I think like Andy and I agree that Quora is like amazing
It's an
and that was-
amazing social listening tool.
yeah, and also I mean Facebook groups. They're niche topics right now out there, and I would advise any business who is in a specific niche to just go in there and find out what people are talking about the topic of their business. You can find every kind of information on the internet, and try to go with communities, because the conversations will give you golden nuggets that you can use to create content, a kick-ass content strategy.
Definitely. And
marketing.
that's pretty much our mantra. Research, research, research. I mean, the internet is there for obvious reasons. There's so many platforms, so many channels that you can go to sort of like understand what your audience is saying about your brand, and more importantly, for you to use that to take it back to your content strategy and to sort of create something that makes sense and at the end brings value to them, and not just what you think it's good for your business or brand.
Agreed. And so with that, I think we're going to wrap up today's episode. I'm really, really thankful that we got to talk to Andy. He's super on it. And if you guys have not had a chance, check out his book. It's called Content Chemistry.
Yes.
And read it. I think it's going to be great for any business to learn about it, especially if they're keen to know about their content marketing strategy. With that, my name is Nazira.
And I'm Rachel Lai, and we're recording live from Bali Praya at the Island of God, Bali.